Hello everyone, my name is Sahil and welcome to the class. In the today's video, we are going to discuss a very important topic, that is the present coal crisis and the power crisis that is going on in the entire country. Now, this particular topic is going to be very important for our UPSC CSC examination in GS paper number 3. In the GS paper number 3, under the topic of energy and the power infrastructure. Under the topic of energy and the power infrastructure. More importantly, this topic is important because repetitively the same thing is happening. In 2021, there was the coal crisis that came around the month of October, and again the similar kind of a coal crisis have come in India. So therefore, the UPSC might ask a question on this particular line. Now, before moving on in this particular video, I am going to discuss three very fundamental questions which will be important from the exam point of view. Number one, we are going to discuss that what is the present coal crisis. Secondly, we will be understanding that where this particular coal crisis began, what was the genesis of this particular issue. And third, most importantly, we are going to discuss that how to solve this particular crisis, what steps we could take so that in a sustainable manner we can tame this particular problem, or more importantly, you can also call it as the way forward. Fine. So let's start the topic, or let's start this particular discussion. Before that, let's put the things into the context. So guys, it has been seen over the past few days that there have been abnormally big power cuts, around 10 to 12 hours in certain states, around 16 to 18 hours of power cuts have been there. Moreover, we have also seen one more, we have also seen that recently railways have cancelled more than 40 of the passenger trains. Why? Because many of the power plants, they were having the critically low levels of coal and they needed the coal onto the priority basis. So the passenger trains were cancelled, and in place of that, the coal rakes, they were stationed and the coal was provided. According to the data given by the Central Electricity Department, it provided that out of 173 power plants, at least 100 of the power plants, they were facing the coal shortages. Moreover, in this particular line, what the Delhi government has to say. So the Delhi's power minister, he said that the Delhi's power plants, they are left with just 1 day of coal supply. And if the coal will not be provided onto the priority basis, the metros, they might not be able to function. The critical utility services such as the hospitals, there might be the power outages in them, and it in itself, it will be a very big kind of problem. So the coal crisis is really a very big issue, and because of the coal crisis, the power outages is the big consequences that is happening. Now, let's understand this particular issue from the very scratch. Now, first of all, guys, when we talk about the electricity in India, so electricity as a subject lies in the concurrent list of the 7th schedule. Now, you know that the subjects which are into the concurrent list, both the parliament or the center as well as the state, they both can legislate. The subject mentioned into the concurrent list, it is the responsibility of both. Now, guys, giving you a brief idea about the power structure in India, fine, it will be helping you to get a better understanding. First of all, we have the power generators. Also called as the GENCOs. Then after that, we have the DISCOMs, the distribution companies. Now, these distribution companies are the one which provide the electricity to the end users. Who are the end users? The houses, the residential units, they are the end users. Institutions, schools, they are the end users. Hospitals, fine, factories, industries, all of them are the end users. So distribution companies provide electricity to them. Now, when we talk about the these generation companies or the generators, they could be owned by the center, they could be owned by the state, as well as they could be private. As of now, when we talk about in India, around 24.6% or around 25% of them are under the purview of the central government. Same, around 26.2% are under the purview of the state government, and big chunk of power generators in India actually are under the control of the private sector, and around 49% of the power generators, okay, they are the 49% of actually the installed electricity, it is coming from the private sector power generators. This particular data is provided by the Central Electricity Authority. Now, why this particular point? It is coming in the context after few minutes. So please keep it in your mind. Now guys, you know that if we need to make electricity, we need to have a certain resource. We need to have certain resource. This resource could be coal, this resource could be gas, this resource could be anything. Fine. Now, when we talk about India, India is actually very much dependent onto the coal. Coal is the raw material that we use for the electricity generation. And again, taking the data from the Ministry of Power, presently in India, 51.1% of electricity is generated by using the coal. Okay. After that, when we talk about the total category, that is the total fossil fuel based category, around 59.1% of electricity in India, it is being generated by using the fossil fuels. In that, diesel will come, the gas will come, the lignite will come, the coal will come. Is it clear? So around 60% of electricity is being generated by the fossil, and in that the coal is the biggest one, around 51.1%. Then the second category that comes, it is the non-fossil fuel category. And when we talk about the non-fossil fuel, okay, around 40%, or you can say 39.2% of electricity generation is by the non-fossil fuels. And in that, what we have? We have the hydro, we have the wind, we have the solar, and then other ones are there. And in this particular capacity, you need to understand the order. Now, the order is sometimes very important for the prelims examination. So, number one is the coal into the fossil category. In the non-fossil category, the number one is the solar. Around 13.5% of electricity is being generated by the solar. Then the hydro, around 11.7% of the electricity is being generated by the hydro. So solar, after the solar there is a hydro. And then the wind, 10.1% of electricity is being generated by the wind. Okay, so in a nutshell, we have a big reliance onto the coal. Now guys, first of all, what is the status of coal in India? When we talk about the coal, guys, you need to understand that India actually is the world's second largest producer as well as a consumer of the coal. There are two concepts. Number one is the coal reserves and number one is the coal producing country. So in terms of coal reserves, India is at the 5th position, but in terms of the coal production, we are at the number 2. So large amount of coal India is producing. Now guys, whatever the coal is being produced, that coal has the different types of utilities. Some coal is being taken by the steel plants, some coal is being taken by the electricity sector, some coal is being taken by the sponge iron industry. So in terms of the coal usage in India, number one user of coal in India is the electricity sector. And according to the data, around 64% of the total coal that is being consumed in India, it is being consumed by the electricity sector. Then other significant users of the coal in India are also there apart from the electricity sector. They are the steel sector, steel and washery, sponge iron industry, cement industry, fertilizer industry, chemical industry. Then there are other domestic usages of the coal that are also there. So in nutshell, we are second largest producer of coal. Electricity sector is using the maximum of the coal that is there. And guys, when we talk about the coal in India, clear, basically our coal dependence, it is coming from the two sources. The domestic sources are there, and then after that there are the imported sources that are there. So in India, as of 2020 and 2021, around 79.03% or around 80% of the coal that we used, it was originated domestically. It means that around for 20% of our coal requirements, we have to depend on another countries. Okay, we have to depend on another countries. In this, There is Russia that is supplying the coal to India. We have Australia, okay, we have Indonesia which is supplying to coal in India. So around 20% is the dependence onto the foreign countries. Some years it also goes to around 25-26%. Now, guys, when we talk about in India, where are the major coal reserves? So in India, around 70% of the coal, it is the 70% of the coal deposits in India, they are found in the eastern and the south central India. And the major coal producing states are Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh. Dhanbad is called as the Dhanbad is called as the coal capital of India. It is one of the biggest coal producers of India. So up till now, we have understood that we have a lot of coal. We have the coal bearing areas. But guys, understand still our demand for the coal, it is more than what our industries can supply. Now, understanding the present genesis of the coal crisis that has been there. So, reason number one, what has happened? It has been seen that in 2022, actually there was a lot of electricity requirement that was there. You can see the data here. If we take the data of 2019 in the month of August, around 106 billion units of electricity was needed. It got increased to around 124 billion units in 2021. And what is the status in 2022? So you can see that into the 2022, we have reached an all high requirement of electricity. Around 201 gigawatt of electricity was needed in 2022 as of April. Clear? Then it has been expected, the power ministry says that this particular demand will be increasing furthermore, and it is expected that around 215 to 220 gigawatt of electricity might be needed around the month of May and June. So reason number one is that electricity demand has been very much high. Now you need to understand that why the electricity demand has increased so much, why so high peak has been there. So for this particular thing, there are the three reasons that are there. Three reasons are there. Let's understand all these reasons one by one. Reason number one. See, it has been provided that there has been the economic revival. We have seen that in 2020 the lockdown got imposed, and after that the manufacturing sector in India, it was highly repressed. Now the government is saying that the MSME sectors which use a lot of electricity, other manufacturing sectors, industries, they are coming out of the lockdown induced repression. Economic activity is gaining the traction. In this particular capacity, you see that the GST collections, they are increasing every month. Recently, India has made a record also where we exported where our export increased more than $400 billion. So manufacturing is doing very much good and they need a lot of electricity. So therefore, because of the economic revival, the demand is very much high. Then the second reason that comes here is the very good performance by two of the government schemes, that is the Saubhagya scheme and the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. So these are two schemes, that is the Saubhagya. Now Saubhagya, it stands for Pradhan Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Sahaj Bijli Har Ghar Yojana. Under the Saubhagya scheme, government provided that government will go for the universal electrification of all the willing households. Electrification of all the willing households. Government had said that it has been a high success. Earlier, the houses which were unelectrified, now they got electrified and they also need the electricity. Moreover, apart from the Saubhagya scheme, government is also running one more scheme, that is the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana. So this particular scheme is particularly for the electrification into the rural areas, and it has also been a very big success. And because of the new houses that have been now electrified, they need more electricity. By the way, telling you one thing, both of these schemes, that is the Saubhagya and the Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana, have now been merged under another scheme, that is the revamped power distribution scheme. Revamped power distribution scheme. So this was the reason number two. Now, what is the reason number three? So So guys, the reason number 3 is hot, exceptionally hot climate that has been there, hot weather that have been there into the month of April and May. It has been seen probably because of the climate change, the mercury is rising. Okay, and as the mercury is rising, as exceptionally hot weather is there, there will be the requirement of the ACs, there will be the cooling requirements that will be there, and because of that, the electricity demand will be going to increase. Moreover, recently the IPCC had come out with its 6th assessment report, and under this 6th assessment report, IPCC has said very clearly that the hot extremes are going to increase in the Asia and Pacific in the coming few years, and probably the 2022 is a new hot extreme that we are seeing, and because of that, the cooling basically needs of the people have increased and electricity demand is exceptionally high. So it has put a burden onto the generators. Generators need more coal, but the coal supply cannot be increased in just a day. So therefore, the crisis begins. Then the another issue in this particular direction that is there. Guys, you need to understand that many people, they have said that it is not actually a coal crisis, rather it is a payment crisis. Now, what is this angle of the payment crisis? Now, first of all, if we take the data from the government of India's portal, that is the Prapti portal. Prapti stands for Payment Ratification and Analysis in Power Procurement for bringing transparency in invoicing of generators. According to the Prapti portal, it has been provided that there is a lot of money that is due to the Coal India Limited. The coal has been taken from the Coal India Limited, the money has not been paid. So therefore, the Coal India Limited is reluctant to supply the coal to the generators. Now, let's understand this particular issue in a little bit more details. Now guys, first of all, we have here the distribution companies. First of all, we have the distribution companies. Now, the distribution companies are the ones who are actually providing the electricity to the end users. Now, these distribution companies, they are actually facing very big losses. It has been seen that around 5 lakh crore rupees of accumulated losses, total losses have been there into the distribution companies. Now, the fundamental question comes that why these distribution companies, they are actually having so much of the losses. Number one is low efficiency. They are not efficient. Okay. There are high AT and C losses that are there. AT and C losses, that is aggregate technical and commercial losses. Number one, the lines through which the electricity is flowing, the power infrastructure, it is inefficient. A lot of electricity is being wasted due to the substandard transmission lines, due to the broken electricity lines. Commercial losses are very much high. People, they are stealing the electricity theft is going on. People, they are not paying their dues onto the time, and these distribution companies are inefficient in collecting back those user charges. So commercial losses are there, technical losses are there, AT&C losses. These AT&C losses are a very big drain onto these distribution companies. According to the website of the uday.gov.in, in India around 17.66% are the AT&C losses. 17.66%, it is very much high. The sustainable range could be around 10 to 12%, but 17.66% of AT&C losses are very much high. Fine. So it shows the low efficiency or poor efficiency of these distribution companies. Then guys, we see this particular thing, that what has happened. Basically, there is a lot of political pressure. Many a times the tariff cannot be revised. Okay, you see that suppose the electricity is being charged around, let's say 7 rupees a unit. If it needs to be increased because the coal has become expensive, because of the generation have become expensive, you cannot do that because the political pressure that is there. Okay, no government wants to take that particular badge that yes, under this government's rule, the electricity tariff got increased. So therefore, what has happened? These distribution companies, they are being pressurized that they should keep the tariff low. And because of that, because of that particular thing, a lot of kind of losses are being mounted into these distribution companies. Okay, so these distribution companies, they presently owe around 1,10,000 crore rupees to the generator companies. Now recall that particular slide that these distribution companies are buying electricity from generators. So they owe 1,10,000 crore rupees to these generator companies. Okay, they are not able to pay back. Now guys, understand these electricity generators, they are actually buying the coal for electricity generations from the Coal India Limited. Now because they are not receiving the payment from distribution companies, they are not able to pay back to the Coal India Limited, and because they are not able to pay back to the Coal India Limited or to the coal mines are actually reluctant to supply coal to these generator companies, and they say that we are facing a coal supply. We are facing a kind of a coal shortage. Moreover, in this particular direction, the Coal India had said that, okay, even though they have not made the payment, we are still supplying them. But it happens to be a very big kind of a reason. It has been said that the generators are not viable, the coal mines are not viable because of the distribution companies' losses. So this is also one more reason that has actually impacted the coal supply in India. Then reason number three, you might have read it everywhere, the Russia and Ukraine crisis that is going on, Russia-Ukraine war that is going on. So we read that Russia-Ukraine war is leading to this particular crisis, but how exactly the Russia-Ukraine war is leading to this crisis? Let's understand it in a more critical manner. Now guys, when we talk about Russia, see, Russia happens to be one of the largest producer of coal in the world. That is the fact. But if you see, this is the data, and in this particular data, we can see that, okay, how much of the coal India is actually importing from the Russia. So, India, you can see it is here. India has imported around 7.52 million metric ton of coal in 2020. 7.52 million metric ton of coal in 2020. It is big, it is a huge amount, but not that huge that it can bring the entire crisis right now. What has actually happened? Guys, see, actually, Russia is not only supplying the coal, rather Russia is also supplying the natural gas to the Europe. Okay, Europe is too much dependent onto the natural gas that is being supplied by the Russia. Now, because the Russia-Ukraine war is going on, what happens? Russia is not supplying the natural gas in that big numbers which it was doing earlier, and the natural gases prices have actually increased very much high. And Europe, for their heating requirements, now the Europe is switching from natural gas to the coal. The Europe is switching from the natural gas to the coal because natural gas supplies, they are not coming from the Russia. Because of this particular thing, what has happened? The coal prices into the international market have increased. Now, when we talk about the Australia is a very big supplier of the coal, and the prices of the Australian coal has increased from $100 per ton to around $440 per ton. Why? Because the natural gas, it is being substituted for the coal. And guys, we actually depend on Australian coal too much, and therefore the coal has become expensive, and because it has become expensive, we are not able to import too much of coal. You know this particular thing, I have told you that around 20 to 25% of India's dependence on coal is fulfilled by the imported coal, and the imported coal's price have now increased. Moreover, guys, the Russian coal also that was going on in the Europe, it has also been also limited. So on that front also, the prices are being escalated. So this is also one more reason that the coal crisis in India is there right now. Then further moving on, after that, guys, there is another reason that has been there, is that we have now seen that there has been the dry weather that has been there. Before the monsoon, many of the rivers, they have very low level of waters, and because of that, the hydropower production in India, it gets impacted. So therefore, guys, these hydropower plants, their capacity is very much limited, and that electricity is also now to be made by the coal powered plants. So because of that particular reason also, now there is a lot of pressure onto the coal fired power plants. So guys, these are the issues that where this particular coal crisis began. So up till now, we have seen two questions. Question number one, what is the crisis? Question number two, where it began. Now, the question number 3, we are going to discuss that how to solve this particular coal crisis, what could be the way forward in this particular direction. So guys, now, number 1 is that what has happened actually in 2020, when the government came out with the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan reform package. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan reform package, the central government provided that the virtual monopoly over the coal mining in India, that is the virtual monopoly of the Coal India Limited, will be reduced. Guys, see, understand that right now the majority of the coal mines are under the Coal India Limited. Certain of the coal mines have been given to the private players also, but largely they are the captive coal mines. Captive coal mines means, let's say, suppose there is a steel plant. Suppose there is a steel plant. Now, suppose that this steel plant needs certain power, and for that they have been given a coal block. They will using the coal only for their own facility. They cannot provide to outsider. So this is the captive coal plant, that is the captive coal mine given to a steel plant operator. So guys, largest number of coal mines, they are under the Coal India Limited's control. Some of them have been given for the captive use, that is there. But the private players, private players are not very much large into the coal sector. So government provided that 50 of the coal blocks will be offered immediately for the commercial mining. Is it clear or not? It came out with this particular thing, and it also provided that any private party can bid for the coal mine. They can ask for the coal blocks if they need. So a lot of privatization was invited by the government in 2020. But guys, this particular thing reached to the Supreme Court. The states such as the Jharkhand, the states such as the Chhattisgarh, they had a problem on this particular point. They said that by this particular thing, the tribal rights will get impacted. Into the tribal belts, private players will come, their livelihood, their traditional lands, they will be snatched. The matter has reached to the Supreme Court, and up till now, nothing has happened on this particular front. So guys, the way forward number 1 is that in line of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan reform package of Government of India, the coal blocks that are to be offered to the private sector, this issue needs to be resolved in a sustainable manner. Sustainable manner means that we need to go for commercial exploitation of the coal, but at the same time tribal rights as well as the environmental issues are also needed to be addressed in a responsible manner. This could be one. But guys, at the same time, I will tell you that see, India is trying to reduce the dependence on the coal. Okay, so you will suggesting this particular point, but don't emphasize it too much here. Fine, I'm telling you it for a practical reason. Then, what could be next? See, basically, India also needs to create an enabling ecosystem to ensure that the power plants, they work efficiently. Now, understand this particular thing. We have two types of power plants. There are the old coal-powered plants, and then there are the new coal-fired power plants. Now see, basically these old power plants, they are inefficient, they use a lot of coal, they pollute too much, their output is very much less. But guys, still largest production is coming from these old power plants only. These new power plants, these power plants are actually sitting idle. Okay, why? Two reasons are there. Number one, these new power plants, they are efficient, they pollute less, their output is more, but these new power plants, they have up till now not signed the coal supply contracts with the coal mines. So because of that, they don't have coal and they are not producing. Secondly, power purchase agreements have not been signed. Power purchase agreements have been not signed. Now what is the power purchase agreement? See, there is a generator, and then I told you that there are the distribution companies. So the distribution company signs a PPA, power purchase agreement, with the generator, and it agrees that at a particular price for a particular period of time and a particular units of electricity will be procured by the distribution company from the generator. So these power purchase agreements are there. These PPAs have not been signed with these new power generators, and because of them their capacity is not being utilized. So what government needs to do? Government needs to take the step that rather than the old power plants, we are using these new power plants which uses less coal and give more output. By that, the efficiency can be brought up in the system. Then thirdly, what we need to do? Now, I talked on the first point that what happened, actually, there was a lot of demand. There was a lot of demand of the electricity that peaked into the month of the April. Now, guys, the distribution companies, they actually needed to be given the technical skill sets that they can undertake the smart assessment and manage the demand. They can take the assessment that, okay, what is going to be the temperature in the next few days, and in line with that, what will be the demand, and in that capacity they need to make some arrangement so that they can arrange for the excess power if it is needed. So they need to go for the smart assessment, they need to go for the demand forecasting. This is a reform that is needed to be brought into the distribution companies. Now guys, distribution companies, when we talk about, they are the state owned as well as the private owned. State needs to take a lot of state owned, the states need to take a lot of responsibility for this particular role. But I'll tell you fundamentally that why the distribution companies are not interested in this particular thing. It is not the fact, it is not the thing that they don't have the capability, they don't have the skills. They have the capability, they have the skills. But see, the problem is that I told you that the distribution companies have actually signed the power purchase agreements by which they will be getting the supply. Now they are not interested in renegotiating these power purchase agreements, because guys, once you sign the power purchase agreement, for a considerable period of time you have to procure that particular power. Now suppose, now I'll tell you, suppose this is the power demand that is there. Now for just 1 month the power demand has actually increased, and then again the power demand is this. So actually if they sign the power purchase agreement for this much demand, they have to procure it irrespective of the fact that whether actually it is being used or not. So power purchase agreement, they come with a clause of the lock-in period where at a particular price for a particular duration and a particular amount of electricity you have to procure. Okay, so the discoms are disinterested in going forward this particular thing. So some flexible, some mid-term, some midway solution is to be brought in this particular direction. Then guys, next, what we need to do? Basically, the electricity regulators, the electricity regulators as well as all the stakeholders in this particular respect need to reduce the AT&C losses. AT&C losses and all other losses that the distribution companies are facing. Now guys, if we see actually the aggregate losses that are there into the distribution companies, aggregate losses including this AT&C losses, inefficiency losses and all these kind of losses, 21% is the losses that these distribution companies are making. So if you reduce these AT&C losses, total losses, they might be able to pay back to the generators on time. The generators might be able to pay back to the coal mines, and the supply will be fluent. Okay, supply chain will not be disrupted. So you need to reduce their losses so that the financial viability is taken care of, and by the financial viability the problem doesn't happen, because you remember it was said that it is not a coal crisis, rather it is a payment crisis. So because of the payment, the coal crisis should not continue. Fine, this is something that is provided. Then guys, just one more thing I want to add in this particular point is that, see, I told you that the financial health of the distribution companies is not good. They are having the huge losses. Government actually few years back for this thing came with the Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana or the Uday Yojana. Under the Uday Yojana, the government provided that the state-owned distribution companies, they will be provided the financial help so that they can overcome their losses. For that particular thing, it was provided that the distribution companies, they need to become more efficient. They need to identify the electricity losses. They need to track the electricity crunch and all these kinds of things. So the Uday scheme came for the financial revival and for the financial turnaround of the distribution companies, but the results have been mixed. Results have been mixed. Now, in place of basically now earlier the Uday was there. Now guys, what had happened? There is a new scheme that the government has come. So cabinet has now come with the revamped distribution sector scheme. Under the revamped distribution sector scheme, these discoms, they will be provided the financial help so that they could be viable, they could be sustainable. So what could be our solution? What could be our way forward? You need to say this particular thing that on the line, basically on the lines of Uday, recently announced revamped distribution sector scheme needs to be implemented properly so that the financial viability of the firms can be ensured. Is it clear or not? Now this particular scheme will be available till 2026. So we need to make the maximum out of this particular revamped distribution sector scheme. We need to make sure that it actually is able to leave a dent in the financial viability of the distribution companies. Okay. And then the next thing is that, guys, we need to also explore, the alternative sources of electricity. In this capacity, the solar electricity is a very viable and a promising option. Now, when we talk about the solar capacity, India is overachieving the targets that India had taken for the renewable energy. Is it clear or not? Fine. By 2022, the target was taken that 175 gigawatt of electricity will be installed by the renewable sources, including 100 gigawatt from the solar. We are overachieving our targets. But guys, still, we are not able to take the full advantage of the solar electricity. You need to understand that when we talk about the solar electricity, there is one very big problem. That is, sun shines just in the day. Around 50% of the times, the solar powered plants, they might not be able to function. Right now, there is no way of storing the electricity other than the batteries. So government actually needs to invest into the battery storage. So battery storage is needed to be enhanced so that the solar power's electricity can be stored in these batteries, and these batteries can be used for the power purposes. So government needs to invest in this thing. Now, when we talk about the batteries, in that particular capacity, the lithium happens to be a limitation. India does not has very big resources of lithium, but in this particular capacity, the South America can help. Okay, and particularly the countries such as the Chile, Bolivia can be taken help of, and in this capacity, government needs to sign the strategic agreements with these countries so that they supply the lithium, and by that lithium, we can enhance the battery infrastructure. Though government has signed certain agreements, but still we need to do more in this particular front. Then the next is, when we talk about the alternative strategies, we also need to explore the hydrogen. Now guys, recently just government had come out with the National Hydrogen Mission. Under the National Hydrogen Mission, government had provided that we are going to create the infrastructure so that the hydrogen can be tapped and hydrogen can be used for the power purposes. Under the National Hydrogen Mission, government has also provided that the goal-oriented research and development facilities will also be provided so that how the hydrogen can be tapped, how the hydrogen power can be stored, how we can actually research onto the fuel cells. Okay, so guys, the hydrogen based fuel cells can power the transportation. Hydrogen powered fuel cells can power a lot of other things. So the research will also be carried under the National Hydrogen Mission. Moreover, under the National Hydrogen Mission, basically the robust framework for the standards will also be put up. Government will also be incentivizing the producers of the hydrogen. So guys, under the line of the National Hydrogen Mission, hydrogen could be a promising alternative source of energy. We needed to tap it, we needed to explore on this particular dimension also. So guys, these are all the way forwards that could be suggested as how to deal with this particular issue. So that is all about this particular issue. I hope that you have understood it and it has actually done some value addition to your preparation. So that is all. Thank you so much.